Hello and welcome to the Blind Gamer Podcast. I'm Steve, and I'm blind, and I like to play video games. So this is actually kind of a first for me. I'm recording this / streaming this on Twitch. It's my first time actually recording a Blind Gamer Podcast on Twitch, and I've kind of done this kind of little fun little setup. I hope you like it. If you are here watching, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's kind of... I'm excited. I'm excited to kind of get back into the swing of things when it comes to the podcast because I've been wanting to be able to jump into it. A little bit kind of about sort of what's been happening lately. Of course, if you haven't known by now, unfortunately, I have lost my job recently, and I've been trying to sort of figure out kind of what my next sort of move is going to be. But what's been happening in my mental health is kind of like working on a little bit of the blind gamer stuff, and mostly my YouTube channel and just streaming on Twitch here. I became a Twitch affiliate, so I'm excited to kind of really get down and dirty in regards to live streaming. So I'm excited, and then also like kind of my mental health has kind of been improving quite a bit because of sort of the just playing video games, and I'm really excited to so if you're listening to this on the audio form, T Monster, my buddy T Morris, he says, oh my god, it's BlindGamerSteve, I'm your biggest stalker biggest fan. Oh, T, shouldn't you be working? So I'm what's been helping my mental health in sort of this sort of time period where I'm just not sure where I want to be able to end up next, essentially has been playing video games, and I've been playing quite a bit of it. And today, in today's podcast, I'm actually going to be talking about sort of my time playing two very different demos, but also similar in regards to genre / play style, and I'm really excited to be able to kind of talk about today. But first, before we get into that, I want to sort of talk about what I have been playing lately, and as I pull up my notes, hey T, good to see you. Pip and I are watching. Oh, awesome. Hi Pip, how are you? Good to see you here. Said it looks great. Thank you. I put a lot of pride in sort of the graphic design background that I have, so something that looks like a professional quality stream, that's what I want to try to do. Anyway, so what I've been actually playing lately, I'm playing actually 4 games. Obviously, Anthem and The Division. I'll get into those 2 in just a sec. But I've been playing, obviously, Far Cry 5 and Destiny 2. So those are a little bit of older games, which is great, obviously. And for the of T watching, yes, Destiny 2, he's a huge fan. We've been, if you don't know, on Twitch.tv, here, both on BlindGamerSteve and the T Monster, every Tuesday night, we've actually been streaming Destiny 2. He's been helping me, we call it Blind Leads the Blind, and he's been helping me go through the campaign of Destiny 2, and we're actually going to, tonight, as of streaming this on Tuesday night at 8 p.m., we're actually going to jump into to Forsaken for the first time, and I'm really excited about that. What's been funny, though, is playing in Destiny 2 it's sort of like I actually honestly have seen my FPS skills have been improving. It's not something that that I was really good at all. For like the longest time, I was terrible at FPS. I always avoided anything Call of Duty or even Halo. I loved Halo and I loved playing those games, but anything multiplayer was so rough for me. But Destiny 2, what I like, it's that it's still a multiplayer game, but essentially I can be able to just kind of go solo if I wanted to. And I was playing quite a bit of it this past week, and I've been grinding up my character. So if you're playing Destiny 2, if you know Destiny 2, I'm playing a Warlock. I'm a level 43 Warlock now, power level 458. I'm excited, and so that should be enough, according to T, should be enough to be able to play Forsaken. So I'm excited to be able to, if you're watching this, streaming it tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'll be playing Blind Leads the Blind. Or if you're listening or / watching this later, I do it every Tuesday night. Obviously, any sort of situations willing. If anything comes up where T and I actually going to be playing every Tuesday night at 8 p.m., we're going to be jumping through Destiny, and it's called Blind Leads the Blind. It's a lot of fun. But I've also been kind of jumping into Far Cry 5 quite a bit. I was playing it actually for full disclosure. It was I recently, end of last year, I consulted with Ubisoft in regards to accessibility, and one of the games they wanted me to be able to try out was Far Cry 5. Mostly, it was they wanted me to kind of like be familiar with their most recent franchises, so that I can actually be able to sort of talk about what were the barriers that we had in playing that game. So Far Cry 5 was a game that they provided for me, and I've been jumping into it because the new DLC, or the new sort of, I guess, Far Cry 5.5, if you will, is coming out very soon. If I remember correctly, I think it's coming out next week. And so I was given a code for Far Cry New Dawn, and it's sort of set later after the story of the story of Far Cry 5. So I've been wanting to be able to kind of jumping back into it again to be able to finish the game, because honestly the trailer kind of spoiled exactly what happens at the end of the game. So I'm like, oh great, now I know. So I want to be able to kind of catch up so I can actually be able to play it. And hopefully if I can be able to time it out correctly and be able to finish the game soon, I can actually be able to stream it live, because there's certain guidelines I have to meet, but it's like I can stream it live on my channel as of February 13th. So I'm hoping actually to be able to so I can actually be able to like enjoy, like I can actually jump into New Dawn very quickly. So hopefully I can finish it. I'm almost done. I'm like 3/4 of the way through. And if you know the game, if you played the game, I've kind of completed 2 of the 3 areas that I need to. I'm about halfway through, almost 3/4 of the way through the 3rd area, and then there's the last little bit that's part of the end game of it. And thank you so much, Unicorn, for joining in, even if you're just lurking. I appreciate it. So that's kind of honestly been the games that I've been playing. But jumping into what I'm going to be talking about today is sort of the tale of 2 demos. Anthem and The Division 2. They both had demos that were private and sort of public for Anthem, and private for Division 2, and they just announced, I think today, that the open beta for the Division 2 is going to be coming out, or is going to be starting on March 1st. March 1st to the 4th. If you have a code for the Division 2, or if you pre-ordered it, you can be able to jump into the open beta of the Division 2. So I'm excited to be able to kind of jump back into it again, and that's not sort of a recommendation for Division 2, but I'll get into that in a second. So there's been very 2 public betas that have happened, and there's been a lot of sort of talk on both that I'm going to be talking about today in regards to the accessibility side. But honestly, it's so first up, let's just jump into the Anthem. So the Anthem had a VIP and a public demo, basically 2 weekends apart, and I was because I actually had pre-ordered Anthem, EB Games called me up and said, hey, you have access to the VIP demo, here's a code. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, I'm interested in jumping into that. And so I tried it out, and I tried to be able to stream it because, of course, just trying to be a good Twitch streamer, I wanted to be able to at least kind of enjoy it and see what it was like, accessibility wise, but also gameplay wise, because I was excited about Anthem because it's made by BioWare, and I enjoy BioWare games a lot, even though Mass Effect kind of like sort of went a little bit downhill and with Andromeda. I'm actually wanting to be able to jump back into Andromeda because I never really gave it a full chance, and I feel like I've kind of improved as a gamer in my skill level, so I want to jump back in, and so maybe the enjoyment factor actually can be able to increase just because I'm actually able to enjoy a little bit more, and the difficulty's not so hard for me to be able to jump in. So BioWare, I've been a fan of BioWare pretty much going back as far as Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic. So I've always kind of given BioWare sort of I just know that their story is really, really good, and their RPG mechanics are really amazing. And I was excited about Anthem because it seemed like it was kind of like a cross between the things that I was enjoying. Destiny 2 crossed with sort of their BioWare sort of storytelling magic with Mass Effect. And then also you had the ability to be Iron Man, and you had like your own javelin suit that you really kind of just rocket through the environment. But when I jumped into Anthem, I found it rather difficult to play. Mainly because there's accessibility issues, and then there's also server issues. Now, I'm willing to forgive server issues and bugs because it happens in a demo, and I totally understand that. However, when a specific bug that prevented me from actually playing the game altogether, where I would load up a mission and it would go through the loading screen and essentially would just sit there for like, I had it actually sitting there at one point for 45 minutes and it not doing anything. And the problem was because at the time I didn't have a PC to stream, so I was streaming off my PS4, and in order for me to be able to kind of continue streaming, I would have to turn off the stream and then get out of the game, go back into it, start the stream up again, and then hopefully it would work. And sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't. And that would just became frustrating in and of itself. So I was only able to play probably about 3-4 missions, and I was unfortunately unlucky because there was a few of my friends who actually got to play more and actually got to level up and get to enjoy a little bit more of the story. I think also as well, it was because they kind of had a squad, whereas I was kind of doing solo, so there was kind of a few people that were playing it. So I don't know, maybe the multiplayer mechanics was a little bit more bug-free than solo mechanics, but it was rather difficult to be able to kind of jump in. Team Monster says, preach. Yeah, yeah, I agree. It was rather difficult. Plus as well, so in regards to the accessibility side of things, here's my problem with EA. They have an amazing accessibility guru, Karen Stevens, who works for EA. She has been working mostly on the EA Sports side. So if you jump into Madden, if you jump into FIFA or MLB, the accessibility features are so robust in there because Karen Stevens has been working hard on that. I don't know if she had any influence in regards to building Anthem because it's an EA game, but it's a BioWare made game. So I don't know how much specifics she was able to kind of consult on that side. Unfortunately, the accessibility options are not that great or robust. Subtitle font size. Let's jump into the actual features that I was sort of gleaned from the game. The subtitle font size. It was hard to see. Even like you have the options to be able to increase to large font size and also to turn on the speaker tag. That was kind of on by default. And also you can, I guess you can also have the background be a little bit more opaque so it's not blending into to the environment too much. And you also had speaker tags so you can be able to know who was actually talking to you. The problem is that the subtitle font size only had like they had like 3 sizes: small, normal, and large. And the large wasn't really that great. It was fine when you're in Fort Tarsus, like when you're interacting with the characters. It was actually honestly okay. And the speaker tag, it took a little bit to get used to, only because the characters that were talking, you weren't sure who was who. So, but once you kind of got used to who was speaking and kind of recognizing, oh, that's this character, instead of just trying to figuring out just based on speaker tag alone, it was fine. However, when you're out in the environment, you're actually out doing missions, the subtitles blended into the background a little bit too much, and it was a little bit too small for me to be able to see. It was quite unfortunate, and I felt like I missed out on a lot of the story side of things because of the subtitles, because sometimes I couldn't be able to hear it properly. And this is not just in regards to just me being a blind gamer. I know that deaf and hard of hearing gamers rely on subtitles so much that because of the font sizes may be too small, it takes them away from the mission. And when you're hearing important information and to be able to complete the mission, it was too hard to be able to kind of read in certain environments. And also, I think there are some, and I'm not an expert in regards to the new, there are some new accessibility guidelines that were put in place actually as the beginning of this year for video games that they had to comply with in regards to text chat for hard of hearing. And while Apex Legends does it really well, which is also a game that I've been playing, but I don't want to talk about it too much because I haven't really had a chance to dive really fully into it. But Apex Legends has a great text to chat or speech to text feature where essentially when you're typing, it'll actually translate the text into narration voice, and so that at least your squad can be able to hear hear what you're saying, and they also have an amazing ping system that you can sort of just kind of quickly tap a button and it will ping what the a certain message to your squad mates, so that whether like if you're looking at if you're working on a cache like of weapons that are available, or you've spotted an enemy, or there's just several kind of preset settings that all you have to do is just tap a button, and there's like a little radio wheel that essentially you can choose specific things. And I haven't gotten better at it like fully yet, but it allows you to sort of eliminate a lot of kind of voice over IP with text. El Unicorn says it was just too difficult for me to be able to play. Maybe if someone helped me, might actually be a good game. Yeah, I agree. Jumping back into Anthem, unfortunately, it doesn't have any text chat. It just has voice over IP. So my theory in regards to why they didn't sort of comply with those guidelines is mostly because Anthem has been in development for a lot longer, and I think if they were able to jump into those features early on in development, it would be something that would be very easy to be able to kind of add in later on in the development process. And that's the problem with AAA developers, especially like several years ago. It wasn't really, accessibility wasn't something that was kind of brought up at the beginning process. So a lot of games that are going to be coming out within this year might not have the accessibility features that are kind of not necessarily required, but like should like have at least some sort of guidelines within the game itself. And so it might be hit or miss, depending on when how early the accessibility features are built into that process. It does now. Anthem does offer colorblind mode, but I didn't play around with it too much to know whether it was just an overall filter that kind of goes over top of the game, or it actually changed the UI to match that colorblind spectrum. So I didn't like, and a lot of games actually kind of do that. I know that Fortnite, they actually just have like a filter that kind of goes across the screen that helps with. In regards to actually like with the colorblind aspect of it, which is fine. It sort of adds like this kind of like this sort of funny or funky like Instagram filter, if that's a good way describing aspect of it, over the screen, and it can help some. I haven't actually. I want to sit down with my friend Andre, who actually is colorblind, and I want to kind of try out a few different games and see which games actually work better when it regards to colorblind mode that have been those features that have been added into the game. It was also hard to be able to actually see enemies as well, because you kind of have, it's sort of like not necessarily like a cover, like a run and cover kind of game like Division 2 is. They're all like when enemies are off in the distance, I can only tell who was who based on the health bar that was above each person, and also you can be able to see the player's name above the player that's in your squad. But any other enemy, it was kind of it was difficult to see from a distance, and I find that's kind of a given in a lot of games. It's very rare that games will have like an option where it's sort of like it kind of like there's a little bit of a glow around an enemy, or it just sort of stands out from the environment itself. But a lot of times the enemies are just kind of blended so much into the environment that it's difficult to see from a distance, and so I have to generally get close. And even though I play like I would a tank when it comes to playing a game, I generally prefer a ranged player because I like that sort of like I can go back and forth into sort of jumping in pretty close and then jumping back away if I need to. So I'm not great at it yet, but I am getting better. And actually, I find that, funny enough, that the Division 2 actually does have a pretty good sort of functionality where I don't know whether it was sort of built in or not, but actually I find that actually the enemies at a distance are a lot easier for me to be able to see than actually a lot of games. I don't know if maybe they just sort of brighten up the characters models a little bit more against comparison to the environment, but for the most part I'm actually able to see the enemies quite well. So I don't know if maybe it's sort of like I need a hybrid of like Assassin's Creed or a Far Cry, like with the highlights of the enemies, or if I need to like if Destiny 2 actually kind of purposely put that in there to enjoy it. Hold on, I need to take a sip of water. I've been talking for quite a bit. I am out of practice. Oh man. I'm so used to sort of just kind of editing out that aspect, but when you're live streaming, nope, can't go past that. So Also, it was matchmaking in regards to Anthem, while fine, I had trouble actually keeping up, and the game would force you back in the mission area after 15 seconds of being far enough away. That to me was, it almost felt like it was punishing me because I wasn't able to keep up with my squad. In the squad, I kind of like I didn't jump in with any of my friends, so I was really trying to build a match and make me to certain people that were playing that specific mission. And whenever, like, they would kind of go off in the distance and actually be able to get into the mission area, but I found that when like, because I was still trying to figure out the environment of where to go, and like, even when you're flying around, your cooldown of your javelin in order to be able to kind of go into like sort of flying mode is not that super fast. It took, like, I had to do a lot more running and jumping in order to be able to kind of get to the mission area. And unfortunately, the game feels like it kind of punishes you, because if you're out of range of the mission area too much, while I applaud the feature where it tries to be able to kind of jump you back into the action, unfortunately, it doesn't give you enough time that if you're close, that it will sort of like, if I'm close and I can see my squad up ahead, but if I had like 5 seconds left and I know I can't be able to reach 5 seconds, it actually jumps back out to a loading screen, and then tries to jump you back into the mission area, and sometimes it actually kind of jumps you back further than you were previously. So I don't know if that was again a bug, but it was annoying enough that I felt like, yeah, like the game was punishing me because I wasn't fast enough to be able to jump in with my squad. And I don't know if maybe that was just the squad or the game itself, but it was something that was kind of rough for me. And I also found that my javelin, while great when I'm actually like kind of when I actually get into the mission area and actually in like shooting enemies, I kept dying a lot. And while my squad sometimes would revive me, I felt like I was kind of bringing the squad down because I kept dying a lot, and I was sort of trying to figure things out and figuring out the controls that I felt like I was hindering the squad, and my disability essentially got in the way, and I wasn't really happy with that. I found it rather difficult to know the weak spots of enemies too. Especially with, like, I kind of felt it, pardon the pun, I felt like I was firing blind. So whereas like, say, for instance, in Destiny 2, you can kind of tell where to be able to shoot, to be able that has the most amount of impact, because you can sort of see the damage that's being done, and then it would highlight yellow when you're getting critical damage. So I knew, okay, in this enemy, it's better to shoot the eye or shoot the sort of the core that's in the middle of their body as comparison to other things. Whereas in Anthem, I couldn't tell where to shoot, so I was sort of trying to figure out sort of like the way to go. And as I was figuring that out, the enemies are also shooting me, and I kept dying a lot, so I didn't feel like I was able to learn fast enough to be able to know when to shoot. And I also felt like that I wasn't really powerful enough. And that's the problem with the demo, is that it jumped you in at level 10. And it sort of expects you to, you're supposed to know sort of how your javelin works and sort of the controls and everything. And I kind of felt like that was a disservice to the demo, because I didn't know what to do half the time when I was able to play. So it was kind of disappointing. And my overall kind of feelings on Anthem, accessibility features or lack of thereof aside, I can get it. I understand it. It's not something that obviously was a priority for them to be able to kind of add in. Although I would have loved for them to be able to do that. I felt that it's a game that I basically overall I am not sure I'm going to be able to pick up. I'm not sure I'm actually going to be able to play, even though I have a pre-order for it, unless the story is just that good that it makes me want to jump in, or I find some friends who are actually like playing Anthem regular that I can be able to kind of jump in with them. I think that probably would make the game a little bit better. But as of right now, whereas I was excited to play Anthem, right now I'm kind of a wait and see, and I'm not too sure. So I mean, I have the pre-order, I have it set aside for me at EB Games if I want to jump in and playing it. But I'm gonna have to wait and see what the reviews are like and whether or not the story is worth jumping into. So that was that demo experience. Jumping into The Division 2, I have to clarify, if you didn't catch it before, I did consult with Ubisoft in regards to accessibility. I did not consult with this particular game. This game was already kind of in development when I went to Ubisoft in Montreal to be able to kind of talk to them about it. So this game, I did not have any impact on or any suggestions made for it. I did not see this game previously. I knew it was coming out, and I knew it was on their sort of the roster of games that they were working on, but I did not have any sort of impact on it. But I also wanted to declare that essentially that yes, I have. I did consult with them. They have given me codes for games to be able to play, and so that's just a disclaimer. Hopefully that covers all my bases. Other Unicorn says, I'm with you on Anthem. Wait and see before I buy it. No, I agree. So The Division 2. If you didn't catch actually my Twitch stream, I did when the private beta started. If you actually go into the archive, you can actually be able to see my playthrough of it. I started from the beginning and kind of jumped and can try to be able to kind of do a couple missions in the first couple hours that I played it. One thing that was sort of apparent that in comparison to Anthem was that Ubisoft, or at least the team at Ubisoft, put a lot of emphasis on accessibility, and that is apparent when, especially right at the very beginning, there's an accessibility menu before you jump into the game itself. And some games have done this, Marvel's Spider-Man being one. Even going back a little bit further, Uncharted 4 had that option built in, including actually, I think The Last of Us had a little bit of an accessibility option before you actually jump into the game itself. And I don't mind when games sort of jumping into the action right away, but when you're not offering an accessibility option to see if to be able to kind of adjust to someone's play style, especially when they're have a disability, it's kind of doing a disservice to the player, and it basically makes that dramatic moment when you're jumping into the action right away less of an impact, because it was a lot difficult for us to be able to play. Whereas in Division 2, it actually had an accessibility menu right away. The first thing that I noticed, and I had all the feels, all the feels when I saw this, was it had the option to turn on large text size in the menus. I have not seen any game do that ever. And that's been something that I've been wanting in games for a long time. I always felt like while the gameplay and the subtitles, while great in a lot of games, they're usually pretty with a few exceptions. There are the text size is actually pretty large for me to be able to see. This actually gave you the option to increase the font size in the menu, and I was so happy about that. In the difference between the two, between a normal size and a large size, was so significant that normally when I'm actually been playing a game, I have to sort of get up and lean in order for me to be able to see, and it's rather it's difficult just to especially when you're having to be able to kind of jump in really quickly and actually do things rather quickly. But the fact that they had that ability right off the hop, I was so happy with. Another option they had that I hadn't really seen adopted before was also there was a narrator text-to-speech option for the menus as well. And so there's an acquaintance of mine. He goes by the name of Sightless Combat on Twitter, and Combat with a K. He's actually really well known. You may have seen a few stories that kind of pop up on Kotaku about him, where he actually plays Gears of War. He's actually been playing Gears of War 4, and he's completely blind. And he's actually able to use sound to be able to play, and he actually does pretty well. He's actually really good at if your game has a really good sound option, he's able to figure that out and actually do better than a lot of normal sighted players. And he actually has a video that's on his Twitter account that actually he plays on the Xbox, and actually shows him allowing to be able to jump through the menus because it has a narrator text-to-speech. For myself, that kind of felt like the volume was a little bit too low if I had to sort of nitpick about it. But the fact that option was there, I was so happy to be able to see. Also, the font style, so that's in just regards to the menus. And when you actually jump into the game, I found that I guess it kind of where the accessibility features sort of divert. While I would love to have seen a large text across the board, It did not translate well into the HUD. There is no large HUD size that font size that I was able to find. But one thing that I did find that was actually nice was it allowed you to be able to kind of rearrange the HUD to fit your play style. So it actually had sort of the mission. Like for me, being able to see what I have to do next in the mission is really important. But I don't like it when it's at the top, like, or basically the top corner of the screen, because I have to essentially like lean forward or lean out to the side in order to be able to see. But with being able to rearrange the HUD, I was actually able to sort of move it down so that actually it's at sort of eye level of my character, so I can just quickly glance over, see what was on the HUD, see what I had to do next, and then kind of get back into the action. So while I wish that the font size within the HUD itself, or even in the hint menu, would have been like, I wish it was a little bit bigger, or at least the same size as in the menu, I would have loved that. But I was able to kind of work around that without really too much of a hassle. So I don't know if that's something that can be built, like with how quickly this game is going to be coming out on March 15th. I don't know if that's something they can be able to kind of adopt. But that's one sort of like nitpick I have about the HUD itself. Another thing they had, and I forgot to kind of, I'm looking at my notes and I forgot to put this into the actual menu itself. They had a high contrast menu mode. So a lot of the menu actually in Division 2 sort of had this sort of like transparent, like opaqueness to it, where you can see it, but also like has a bit of the environment in behind the menu items itself. But you can actually be able to turn high contrast mode on, and it made it like super bright, and also it turned off the opaqueness, so the transparency, so it was very opaque, and I was able to see that even better than without it. So I had that turned on quite a bit, and I really enjoyed that. I loved, in a weird way, so when I'm playing games, it's hard for me to be able to see the health bar and how much ammo I have left, because the developers usually relegate that to the bottom or the top like corners of the screen. While fine, because it's sort of like makes the HUD a little bit more minimal, it's rather difficult for me to be able to kind of quickly look up, see how much health or ammo I have left, and then go back into the action. But what I found was nice about the Division 2 was that the health and ammo was attached to your player. So anytime you move around, it was almost like that After Effects effect, where you can you see like a video where the text kind of moves with the player itself. It had that sort of functionality to it, and it was really cool to see, because I could just very quickly look, okay, I'm low on health, load up, start healing myself, or reload my gun, because I can see how much ammo I have left. And it was really nice. And I even though the font size I wish was a little bit bigger, it was a lot easier for me to be able to see and play and look at it at a glance without having to die all of a sudden because I didn't realize that I was like really, really super low on health. So I applaud Ubisoft. Even though they probably did that to make it look cool, in a way, it's sort of like one of those. It's an accidental accessibility feature that they probably didn't realize. Thank you so much. IBDA bloke. Sorry, I mispronounced the name. Thank you so much for the follow. I really appreciate it. For those watching the Twitch stream, I like to shout out to the people who have been following me. Anyway, so back into sort of Division 2 accessibility stuff. So with that being said, there's a few tiny nitpicks about the game. Enemies were really hard to spot. Because this game relies so much on essentially the duck and cover, or the run and cover type shooting mechanic, which is fine. And when I played the Division 1, that took me a little bit to get used to, because I'm so used to sort of just running and gunning, but taking cover, it was hard for me to be able to kind of figure out which cover to take, because I don't know whether or not there's going to be enemies going to be coming from the side or in behind me. So I'm always kind of like trying to run and be quick so that the enemies can't get a jump on me. But if I try to cover, even though I'm like very slowly kind of be able to try to figure out, okay, where okay, I'm aiming, shoot. Oh shoot, there's a guy behind me. Oh quick, I gotta get out. And then it just, Division 1 was very difficult to be able to kind of really get into that. Whereas Division 2, even though it kind of keeps that same mechanic, the enemies were still hard to see. The only way I can be able to know where that enemy was, again, was the health bar was right above their heads. However, if you don't see the health bar but you can kind of spot an enemy, there's like this little tiny red triangle that's above their heads that if you look closely you can see it, but for me it was a little bit too small. If that little triangle was a little bit bigger, then it would make it a little bit easier for me to be able to spot the enemies, especially those that are like kind of running specifically. Like, I don't know what it was. It was like these kind of weird sort of enemies that would just constantly be running and just like coming at you and just trying to be able to like melee you to death. And that was always annoying because it's like I'm covering, I'm looking, I'm shooting. Then all of a sudden, oh crap, there's a guy behind me. And then you have to get out of cover, and then you have to try to be able to shoot before they actually kind of get a bunch of shots in. And it took a little bit to get used to. But what I liked about it, at least accessibility wise, was that I can always tell when that character was going to be coming towards me, because there's just like this innate scream that they have that it's like, oh shoot, okay, I can hear it, okay, find a bit of cover, back away, or find a different spot so that I can be able to see where that enemy is going to be coming. So that, like, it didn't help all the time. Especially when I'm kind of like just really running and gunning it, but it was enough for me to be able to kind of like, okay, realize, okay, there's something, there's going to be enemies that are going to be on me in a second that I'm going to need to find some better cover, or at least a better way to be able to kind of find them first and shoot them first before they get to me. Let's see, let's take a look at my notes, especially when having to shoot. Yep, from distance, knowing where. Oh, also, if you watch my Twitch stream, you probably saw that there was this one particular like mission, and you get to the very end of it, and there's this boss that you have to shoot, and it's like they say there's a little bit of dialogue that says aim for the ammo pack or the ammo belt or the armor belt. I couldn't tell 100% half the time. Like I think it was armor or ammo belt, whatever. And they distinguish that boss as with a different health bar. It's a yellow health bar, which I assume in the game means that he's shielded or has a bunch of armor on, which is sort of why I think it says armor or ammo belt. And if you watch that stream, I was getting really frustrated with being able to play it because I was trying to be able to shoot down all. There's a wave of enemies that you have to defeat, including a little mini boss that you have to defeat, and then the boss comes out, and then there's another wave of enemies that you have to be able to defeat. And so my usual sort of MO is to shoot all that wave of enemies first, so that literally the boss is left. But the boss kind of keeps following you around, and because they say shoot for the ammo or armor belt. And I'm one that I have to shoot from a distance. It was hard for me to be able to aim properly because the enemy was too small for me to be able to like see, and because of the recoil of the weapon and just where I was aiming at, it felt like I was doing zero impact in order to be able to shoot this guy down. And it took me probably about I want to say like maybe an hour and a half to try to be able to defeat it. Like if for those who have played the demo, essentially it went through a whole day cycle in the game for me to be able to like get even to the point where I was actually like able to defeat him. And I actually had to end the stream early because I just was getting frustrated and I couldn't be able to get past it. I did go back into it later, and once I kind of like rested and the fatigue hadn't really set in, and I was able to defeat it. But I don't know if I defeated that enemy by myself. I think it was either just some lucky shots or the NPC character that was with me was getting some good shots in, but I was finally able to defeat it within about 2 tries. So it could be just I was lucky. I have no idea. But it was just because of the distance, it was just hard for me to be able to see. Jumping off of that, I want to like the map was absolutely gorgeous in this game. It sort of kind of sets it up in a way. I don't know if you've ever seen any movies where you have like there's like this, if you see any, like it's kind of like almost like a Game of Thrones where you see the map of the layout of your world or your city or your level, and you have like these little mini figures that sort of show where your enemies are or where your troops are on the map. And the Division 2 actually kind of adds that sort of feature to the game. So it has like this map has sort of like a 3D like kind of Google Maps effect to it, where you can kind of see how tall buildings are, but it also kind of has like this little figure that of your character to show you exactly where you are on the map. And I actually found that really cool and really intuitive to be able to see. It's separated enough from the background, and the icons for all the different areas to be able to kind of go to, whether it was a mission area or just kind of like a little skirmish you can be able to get to, or your safe house or your whatever. It was, the icons were really bright and really large for me to be able to see kind of at a distance. I haven't really got any further into the map, so I don't know how well that map translates when you're kind of zoomed out and you're kind of all over DC. But I found that map was actually really easy, and I kind of used it quite a bit in order to be able to kind of know where I was going next, or looking into into sort of like kind of where I was just in relation to the city itself. The only thing that I found that the map wasn't really super great was the GPS sort of tracking system. If you were like, okay, you locked onto a certain mission icon on the map, and you can sort of see like this line that kind of like directs you where to go. I felt that line was a little bit too faint or too thin to be able to see, so I would be constantly turning my character in the environment, or the camera in the environment, to kind of like maybe like see if maybe that little line would kind of like blend up with the environment enough, so I'm like, oh, okay, I see that's where I need to go. And I had to kind of almost consult the map a little bit more in order to be able to actually see if I was going in the right direction or not. So I found that was a little bit difficult to see, but I was, once I adapted to it, it was a lot more easier for me to be able to enjoy. Yeah, I think, and then the actual gameplay itself was actually a lot of fun. I enjoyed sort of the story aspect, and I enjoyed this Division, the first one, that story aspect, and sort of like the money virus or the dollar virus, and kind of like you're in New York. I didn't really jump into the dark zone areas in Division 2 or even the Division 1, so I don't know how well that is in regards to sort of PvP/PvE. And I know that in Division 2 they do dark zones a little bit differently this time around, where there's like different areas where it makes it a little bit more accessible, not just for like accessible for sort of like regular casual players to be able to jump into the dark zone. And I know that that they've kind of tweaked that a bit, so I'm interested to see how that goes once I kind of jump into the game. And hopefully I can be able to jump back into the open beta on March 1st. So March 1st to 4th, that weekend, you can kind of jump back in, and then the full game comes out March 15th. Speaking of March 15th, I probably will be actually talking about Division 2 more when I jump in on Kinda Funny Games Daily, which I'm excited to be able to jump in again. I don't know who's going to be co-hosting with me. It's more likely going to be Greg Miller, but I will be at Kinda Funny on March 15th on Kinda Funny Games Daily, so make sure you tune in to twitch.tv/kindafunnygames to be able to watch my appearance on that. And more likely, we'll probably be talking about Division 2 because it comes out that day, so I'm excited about. Now, as far as kind of like just an overall feeling I have about Anthem and Division 2, I know that I really kind of dove into the accessibility features that I liked in regards to Division 2, and I know I jumped into sort of the negative aspects of Anthem with accessibility and just sort of the gameplay. Here's the thing. I like the worlds of both. Again, jumping back, I love BioWare. I love their world building skills, and I love their storytelling. So that's what makes me really excited to be able to kind of to jump into it. I am still a wait and see about that game, but with the Division 2, I felt, I don't know, maybe it was just sort of the separation of being away from New York and jumping into Washington, D.C. Like, the fact is, okay, what really was like, oh, this is really, really cool. Your base of operations in the Division 2 is the White House. Yeah, I'm like that to me was like, oh, I'm excited. And here's the thing. I've never seen the White House in person. Of course, I've seen it in a bunch of photos and movies and stuff like that. I don't know how it is. I mean, I don't know if T is still watching. He lives in DC, so he knows, and he works for the government. So I don't know whether or not how excited that would be to be able to kind of have their base of operations as the White House. But I thought that was really, really cool. And I don't know, the story aspect of this game kind of makes me want to jump in and sort of understand the lore in the storytelling of this game. So I'm excited for the storytelling for both games. As far as gameplay is concerned, I like the Division 2 more. And I'm not saying that because, again, I consulted with Ubisoft. They respect my opinion, even if they think it's a negative one. And I know that probably some of the people who are at Ubisoft team are watching this. Hello, hi, good to see you, good to talk to you. But I found that I enjoyed my time in The Division 2 more than I did in Anthem. And that's sad for me to say. And I hate to kind of bash on a game like that, especially Anthem. It has its benefits. Like I said, the story I'm really looking forward to. The gameplay aspect, the fact you can kind of be almost Iron Man in this game is really cool in and of itself, and it has like a Destiny 2 vibe. I really want to jump in, but yeah, no, I have to give it to Division 2. I just went through a mini debate in my head. I'm like, okay, I'm going through the pros and cons of both in my head. Storytelling, while both great, it's just the gameplay I got to give it to the Division 2. And that's sort of where that goes. Of course. And as it turns out, one of the Ubisoft representatives is in the chat right now. Thank you, David. Thanks so much for these. Thanks so much for the kind words, but also for the feedback. That's super useful to us. I appreciate it. See, Ubisoft gets it. Oh man, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And I am recording this, so I will be able to share it. Well, that'll go up actually later on this afternoon. So yes, I am. Wow, that just kind of threw me off for a little bit. But yes, no, I have to give it to Division 2. I was really impressed with how it worked. I'm excited to be able to jump into that. Will I jump into both? Probably, more than likely. But I'm still going to wait and see for Anthem. But I'm definitely going to jump in 100% on day one on the Division 2. So that's all I kind of had to talk about today. I'm kind of ending this podcast now, and I'm jumping into the swing of things with this. I'm streaming, doing something new with streaming this. If you watch this, if you like this, give me a shout on Twitch or twitch.tv/BlindGamerSteve or at Steve Saylor on Twitter. Would really like to know what you think. And if you're listening to this on podcast services, if you don't know, I actually do stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/BlindGamerSteve, and also everything that I do is always going to be on youtube.com/snowball. So if you subscribe to me on that, because I probably will put this podcast up on there as a recorded archive of it. So I'll see how that goes. Hopefully it works out great. Wow, this ending's kind of all over the place, but thank you so much for watching. Like I said, follow me at Steve Saylor on Twitter and on Instagram, youtube.com/snowball, or follow me /subscribe on twitch.tv/BlindGamerSteve. You'll be helping me out a lot. And so that's it for me. I don't know when I'm going to be coming back as far as next episode. I'm going to try to be able to kind of get back into a regular basis, but I will be kind of jumping back into definitely streaming this. I really enjoyed streaming this on Twitch. So thank you so much for watching. As always, I remain obediently yours.